welcome to today's newest video. A video I like to call W to the 5th power E, or what went wrong with wrestling entertainment. Now, to start this video, since I made the other videos, at least one person has come to me thinking that they've earned the right to challenge, as it were. Now, that's a discussion that I don't think they even begin to understand. Because in order to make a video about understanding why wrestling is failing now, first I should explain my own credentials, as it were. A lot of years ago, before I joined the Army, I used to wrestle for local companies in my area. I didn't get paid for it. I hoped to someday, but didn't really concern myself much with that. Had a job, was doing something else on the side. But my friends and I would go at least twice a week, if not more, depending on when there were shows, and set up the ring and tear down the ring and throw ourselves around on the ring and practice moves and prepare. And then once a month we would put on a show for the local community, and they paid to come see it. At least the people that ran the thing got paid anyway. And we went out and we did our thing because we believed in what we saw. Of course, like all things, it ended and I moved on in my life and wasn't able to wrestle anymore. And for that reason, I joined the Army instead. And I spent 7.5 years in the United States Army. But just before I left, I had a match with a friend of mine, Scott Keys, and for a title that I had never gotten a shot at before. At the time, it was called the HCW title, and it was our title for the group of friends that in the spare time wrestled in the backyard and did all the stage diving moves through tables that were on fire, and used fluorescent lights and everything else on each other because it looked cool on the screen and it made us bleed, and everything else that was going on in wrestling at the time. And in this last match held in my friend's bedroom, and straight up I quit rules just before I went to the Army, I forced my friend to tap out and surrender his title to me. So I walked away with it, and I went to the Army for 7.5 years. And one time while I was deployed, I tried to go visit Vince McMahon himself, who had graced us with his presence at the FOB. But unfortunately, my unit didn't like me enough and made sure I was on mission that day. So I didn't get to meet Vince or Rey Mysterio or anybody else that was at WrestleMania that day. But I didn't worry about it because I had something special waiting for me when I got home from Iraq. Because my ex-wife at the time, who acted like she cared about me, decided to replace that old title belt for something that I valued because I loved wrestling and I had since I was a child. She decided to spend a large amount of money to replace the old title belt with this one. And as most people can see and have seen in the other videos, the belt reads Omen Cross, and it always has. Because that's who owns this belt, and that's who's always owned this belt. Now, since then, and actually not too long after I got this belt itself, I got to have what you would call a special fanboy moment. Because I went to WrestleMania 25, and on that night, I got to take a picture that is the profile picture I'm using currently, where this belt is wrapped around my waist, and on my shoulder is the belt of the wrestler I consider to be my personal hero, the Game, Triple H. So to me, that night where I got to hold his belt on my shoulder while my belt was around my waist was a nice night. So after that, I watched the show, and unfortunately, due to horrible domestic issues, it wasn't the night I had planned. But I still enjoyed it because I got to watch my hero in the ring just after coming home from Iraq. And that was as close as I figured I'd probably ever get to him. That's fine. Since then, I've carried this belt around with me all over the country, in the back of my car most of the time. But at times, you'll catch me throwing it up in the front window, because this belt has gone all over the country. And now, because I am a Satanist first, and everything else that I am second, it also represents what I call Hell's title. Because like a true warrior of hell, I would defend this title with my life. Not in some scripted match, but in a match where you could expect that somebody might seriously be injured. And that's the title I carry around. So, to the people who would challenge me for this title, I would say, first you need to understand all these things. Now that that's over, I'm going to consider wrestling the thing that we're supposed to love. Unfortunately, it's also the thing that as of late has been horrible. Now, I don't know which part to criticize because there's just too many flaws. But I'm going to start with the one that, above all the rest of them, pisses me off the most. And I'm not the only one. I represent an entire group of real wrestling fans across the world that hate this person, and not as a gimmick, but because of what this person has done with his life. And that man's name is Brock fucking Lesnar. Now, Brock Lesnar, I'm not going to sit here and just criticize you because you need somebody else to do your talking for you. If you're that muscle-headed idiot that can't speak, then I understand. You've got Hulk syndrome. You just... But let's not even go there. Let's talk about Brock Lesnar, the individual, versus the character. Now, Brock Lesnar is a man who at one time was on top of the WWE like he usually is now, and was given titles and let beat everybody in the world like he is now. And he decided at a certain point that he didn't want to be a wrestler anymore. He was better than that. So he just up and left and wasted the time and investment that everybody had put into him. That doesn't show me somebody that understands wrestling inside. So what happened after that? What? You went and tried to play football and it didn't work? Bet that was embarrassing. And then after that, you decided, well, I need to lose some of this up here and bring it down some and go be a UFC fighter. Okay. So you trained and you trained because you had a ton of money and you could pay to have anybody train you wanted. Okay. And you went into the UFC and won a couple fights. Okay, not bad. But the thing that pisses me off about that, Brock Lesnar, is not only did you lose that title after just getting it, but then you decided, because you got hurt, that you didn't want to fight no more because you might get hurt worse. And why was that? Because the actual competitors there in the UFC didn't want you there. They hated you. And they admitted it because you, to them, were nothing but a wrestler trying to infringe on their world. And that's why you were hurt, was so that you would go away. So then once he went away, what? Now we accept him back into wrestling again? Just because, what? He's big and puffed up? Anybody can do an F5. That move is so basic that I could teach my kid to do it in less than a week. And I don't even have kids. So I could teach somebody else's kid to do it in less than a week and not get hurt or hurt anybody, which is probably less than Brock Lesnar can say. Because I'm sure Mr. Lesnar, who doesn't think about much else that he does, doesn't consider the difference between a 260-pound man and a 500-pound man when he's F5ing somebody. He just does the move he's used to. And when you do things like that, people get hurt. So, for all these reasons, Brock Lesnar does not deserve to be a champion. Brock Lesnar does not deserve to be on Monday Night Raw. Brock Lesnar deserves to be beaten into the ground, so he will go away from wrestling too. Brock Lesnar deserves to be forced into losing every single match that he has until he whines so much he just goes away. And if Triple H, my hero, who apparently now is Vince and not the game anymore, if Triple H cannot do it, if they can't take the shirt and the pants and the shoes off of Kane and bring Kane back, and Kane can't do it, and if John Cena doesn't want to be man enough to do it to the level that it needs to be done, not just 1, 2, 3 on Brock Lesnar, but the end of Brock Lesnar, for the sake of every wrestling fan who has watched him spit on us from the day he arrived. And if you don't believe he spit on us all, he took away The Undertaker's streak. Nobody deserves that. Nobody. And if anybody deserved it more than Brock Lesnar, why not Triple H the year before? Triple H deserved that streak more than Brock Lesnar did, but they still gave it to Brock Lesnar. And he didn't deserve to even be in that match in the first place, because he's not a wrestler. He doesn't understand the streak and what it means. All he understands is money in his pocket. And he'll do anything to make it. So if Brock Lesnar really is this big of an asshole that he would go around the world and bully people for a living, then Brock Lesnar, in a match that's not sanctioned and might not even exist on TV, maybe you need broken by somebody so you'll just go away. Not in a fist fight. That'd be like stacking somebody's up against a brick wall. But I guarantee you a couple broken bones in the right places and you'll start rethinking your career and what's going to happen after it's over. And you can't walk right anymore because you might beat me into the ground, but we both won't walk away from it. Because if I'm not walking away, neither are you. And if nobody respects wrestling enough to stand up and say this themselves, then I'll do it instead. Why? Because I believe in my title and what it means. Brock Lesnar believes in nothing, and he needs to hear those words that I've been waiting to hear for so long. Brock Lesnar, you're fired! Hail to the Father and to all his true children.